Hi there. Today we're going to talk about Lesson 8. Lesson 8 has to do with the beginnings of fractions and percents. Um, as I've stated here on the paper, that fractions are used to name parts of a whole or parts of a group. In the example here, I have a box that's divided into 4 parts. Okay, there are 4 parts to this whole. Hence, if I were to shade one of the 4 parts, I would be representing the fraction 1 of 4, 1 shaded to 4 parts. Now, if I were to shade another part of this whole, now I have 2 parts of the whole shaded, and so it would be 2 parts of 4. Same thing if I were to shade this third part, then I would have shaded 3 parts of the whole. Okay? Now, what part is not shaded? Well, this part right here is not shaded, so one part of the whole is not shaded. So that's the basic idea of fractions. You always have to remember that fractions are really a division problem in the sense of this is 1 of 4, 1 divided by 4. You can always think of the line as a division sign. Okay, we need to talk just a little bit about common fractions. A common fraction, and those are the ones that you really will always deal with. Common fraction has 2 parts. Okay, and I bet you know what the 2 parts are. You have a numerator and a denominator. This is the division bar, and as I said, we always think of them as division problems. Okay? Now, we can take a fraction and we can turn it into a percent. And we do it with the common ones that we're used to, but sometimes we don't think about doing it with other ones. So if we had 1/4, okay, if you know this one, okay, you would know that it is 25%. Now, if we don't know for sure, we could take 1 and divide it by 4. Put in our zeros. 4 goes into 10 2 times. Put our decimal place in there, and that would be 8, which leaves us with 2 0. 4 goes into 25 times, so that's 0.25, which to turn into percent, you move it 2 places to the right, so it's 25%. And that's a basic way to deal with percents. Percents are really just saying a part of a whole as well. Okay, so when you're talking about a percent, if you're talking about 30%, okay, you're talking about 0.30 times 100. Okay, 0.30 times 100 is 30%. Okay, so it'd be 30 out of 100. It's the same thing. Now, along with fractions, we have mixed numbers, and I know you're familiar with mixed numbers. A mixed number includes an integer, so it's a fraction and an integer. Integers can be negative, so you could technically have a negative fraction. An example, 1 1/4. Another example, -2 1/3. Another example, 14 1/2. These are all mixed numbers. Okay, you can turn a mixed number into a percent. If you take 3 1/2, that's the same thing as 100% plus 100% plus 100%, because it's 3 wholes. If you were doing it as circles, you would think 3 whole circles and then plus 50%, which of course would be a half of a circle. Okay? Now, if you want to turn a fraction and a percent, if you want to do that, and you can look at a picture. Let's say you have something divided like that, and that's not exactly equal, but okay. 1/3 of this shaded, okay, you would take that, and you can do many different things with it, but in this case you could take 1 and you could divide it by 3, okay, and you have a 0 and a 0. 3 times 3 is 9 with 1 remaining. Bring down a 0. 3 times 3 is 9 with 1 remaining. Oh, look at there. You have a repeating. So you really end up with 1/3 being 0.33 repeating. It goes on forever. If you turn that into a percent, you just move the decimal over 2 places, and I think probably I'll put another 3 in there, and you end up with 33 and 1/3%. So 1/3 is equal to 0.33 repeating is equal to 33 and 1/3%, or you could write it 33.3 repeating percent. Okay? All right. Now you can work with number lines and mixed numbers, and those are really pretty easy. If you had a number line like that, and I said, would you please represent 5½ on that number line? Where is 5 1/2? Well, you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you go right here, and that right there would be 5 1/2. It is not that difficult to do. You just have to look at the divisions on the number line. And you can have an inch ruler, and you can look at an inch ruler and it has all of the pieces marked on it, and it is very easy to get frustrated with a ruler because you're like, oh, how many pieces are there? Well, if you divide it in half, okay, that's 1/2. If you divide the halves in halves, that becomes 1/4. And then, of course, 1/4, 2/4, you divide it again, this becomes 3/4. If you divide the fourths in half, you end up with 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, 4/8, 5/8, 6/8, 7/8. Now I said these were 3/8. This is actually 2/8. This is 4/8. This is 6/8. Okay, if you divide the eighths in half, then they become 16ths. 1/16, 2/16, 3/16, 4/16, 5/16, 6/16, 7/16, 8/16. Notice 8/16 is 1/2. 9/16, 10/16, 11/16, 12/16. Notice 2 times 6 is 12, 2 times 8 is 16. 13/16, 14/16, and 15/16. And then of course this is 16/16. And that's really how you can do that. And that's the best way to set up a number line to do comparisons. If you're given some fractions and they want you to put them in order, if you have this in your notes, folks, you can use this over and over again to be able to decide, okay, 1/8 is smaller than 7/16 and 7/16 is larger than 5/16. If you have this in your notes, it'll make it super easy to be able to arrange fractions in order. And that's really what this is all about, being able to understand where the fractions are on a number line. And if you don't understand, then draw one out so that you can look at it. Well, that's all I have to say about this lesson. So I hope you had an awesome time taking the notes, and I will talk to you later. Be sure you have this done before you come to class.